Good afternoon. As US and Iranian officials conclude the first high nuclear talks in years, signs of cautious progress emerge from Muscat. While both sides confirmed the meeting was constructive, core issues remain unresolved. Iran insists on limiting discussions to its peaceful nuclear program, while Washington demands stronger guarantees. Despite early threats of military actions, President Trump has now signaled a shift, directing his envoy to explore diplomacy. Meanwhile, Iran described the talks as constructive and respectful. Will these talks lead to a new deal, or will decades of mistrust prevail? What are the risks if dialogue fails? Welcome to Depth. The Washington Post has reported that the US and Iran have begun high-stakes but low-expectation nuclear talks in Oman, marking the first serious engagement in a decade. The discussions come amid increased US military assets and deep mutual distrust, especially after US President Donald Trump withdrew from the 2015 nuclear deal during his first presidential term. Talks were conducted indirectly via Omani mediation, with both sides signaling modest hopes. The newspaper added that Iran is open to restrictions that call for greater transparency and limits on enrichment, while Israel demands full dismantlement. And it's still unclear what exactly the Trump administration is asking Iran to do to curb its nuclear program. If talks fail, harsher European sanctions could follow, risking further escalation, including Iran's responding by expelling nuclear inspectors and withdrawing from global nuclear non-proliferation treaties. The first round of high-level nuclear talks between the US and Iran concluded in Oman. Both sides called the dialogue constructive, with another round expected next week.
In Muscat, capital of Oman, the most high-level US-Iranian talks since the US pulled out for the nuclear deal in 2018 have wrapped up with cautious optimism. Held under the mediation of Omani Foreign Minister, the indirect discussion centered solely on Iran's nuclear program. For 2.5 hours, US envoy Steve Witkoff and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi exchanged messages via the Omani delegation. Iran emphasized it will not negotiate under pressure and insists its nuclear program is entirely peaceful. Meanwhile, Washington confirmed that President Trump has instructed his team to pursue diplomatic solutions, if possible. Sanctions relief in return for nuclear restrictions remains the central question. The Iranian Foreign Minister's comments regarding the meeting was rather positive, as he described the environment as peaceful and respectful. Similarly, the White House described the dialogue as positive and constructive, noting a willingness to meet again next week. Iran's delegation echoed that sentiment and said that both parties want fruitful negotiations. As the first round of the talks concluded positively, the outcome of next rounds shape a broader diplomatic path forward, and could it expand beyond the nuclear program?
Well, for more analysis, we're joined from Pennsylvania by Mr. Malik Francis, political analyst and member of the Republican Party. Good afternoon to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. Let me here start by asking you, the White House has described the Muscat talks as positive, and Trump has said that the talks are going okay. What does this mean from the strategic American perspective?
Good afternoon to you, and thank you for having me. And it's an honor being with you. For the first time, I'm optimistic when it comes to President Trump talking about peace, because as you know, during the campaign, he promised to be a man of peace. And the outcome of the meeting yesterday, according to both sides, the Iranians and the American, that was very positive, and there was respect between both of them. And that's what we need. We don't need the president to threaten to open hell in Iran and he wants to destroy Iran. So I am very optimistic, and I hope that President Trump will not change his mind, because as we all know, he's very unpredictable. So therefore, I am optimistic, because Steve Witkoff is a very respected man, and he's trusted by President Trump. So therefore, an agreement could be achieved if Witkoff is free to do whatever he needs to do in order to come to an understanding with the Iranian government.
Now, how, from your point of view, do you interpret President Trump's goals of what he called a better deal? What would that entail?
I think President Trump wants to make sure that Iran will never have nuclear weapons. And he wants the international inspector to go back to Iran and inspect any plans without any restriction. And he wants Iran to stop interfering in other nations' affairs and stop financing and arming militias. As we all know, that Hezbollah in Lebanon is almost done. He has no military future, because he will have to give his arms to Lebanese government.
Yes,
in
but
Syria,
Mr. Francis, as we understand, or to our understanding, that the talks are specified in the nuclear file so far.
Yes. Now, the main thing that Iran should not be allowed to have nuclear weapons. That's this one. I think President Trump and the American administration will not allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. This is one when President Trump will not change his mind about using nuclear for peaceful projects. Yes. It may maybe that Iran will be allowed to use it, but international inspectors will have to inspect all the plans. This is, I think, another issue that Steve Witkoff will have to solve with the Iranian government.
Let me reiterate what we were speaking about, and let me ask you now, Iran has demanded that the talks would be specified in the nuclear act, but would that suit the American view or vision towards the talks with Iran?
You know, before any agreement is achieved, both sides will ask for more, then they will get less. And as you know, Iran was our best ally prior to 1979, prior to the revolution in Iran. So I believe that Iran is going to be our best ally in the Middle East, and we need Iran, we need its market, and an agreement with the Iranian in regard to its nuclear program will ease the tension in the Middle East. Hopefully, we could move ahead with peace agreements among all the nations in the Middle East, and that's in the interest of the United States, national interest. And our big companies here are looking forward and are eager to enter the Iranian market, and it's going to happen. And President Trump hasn't accomplished anything in 2.5 months. He loves to issue presidential orders, and he loves, as you know, he loves his signature. He shows his signature to everyone. So hopefully this time he's serious about it, because that's in the interest of United States, and he will claim a victory, and he may be a candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize in the future.
This is from an economic perspective. Let me here take it to the political one. And given that the first meeting was described as constructive, what specific outcomes do you think the U.S. side considers a success so far?
A success because I think they broke the ice between the two nations. Before the meeting, there was no trust between the Iranians and United States, because don't forget that in 2018, it was President Trump then who canceled the nuclear agreement because President Obama signed it, and he wanted to sign it. Secondly, President Obama made a mistake by not sending the agreement to the Congress to be approved. This time, the Iranians want a promise that the agreement will not be canceled. Therefore, after the agreement is signed, hopefully it will be signed in a few months, hopefully, it should be sent to the US Congress to be approved. And if it's approved, no president could cancel it anymore. And this one, I think, will make the Iranians happy that they don't have to come back every other year and have problems with any US administration.
Right. Iran has emphasized that a win-win approach, or this is what it wants. What are the minimum conditions for Iran, or conditions Iran need for an agreement from your own point of view?
Iran wants the embargoes lifted because it cost Iran not billions, maybe trillions of losses of dollars lost. So therefore, I think the main thing Iran wants the embargoes to be lifted, to be respected as a nation. Secondly, that the agreement should have legal status, that it should not be canceled after President Trump, if he leaves the White House in 3 years. But and another president should not be allowed to cancel the agreement because the president before him signed it. So that's what all Iran, I think, is asking for. But the main thing, lifting the embargo, the sanctions and the embargo against the Iranian people.
Right. Iran has also refused to negotiate under threats. And we've seen many of the threats, sanctions, and maybe in military action. Now, how does the presence of U.S. warnings in case talks fail affect the dialogue process?
I think the Iranians are very intelligent, and especially the foreign minister who has been negotiated with Steve Witkoff. He knows that President Trump likes to talk. He likes to threaten everyone. He's a bully, unfortunately. And the whole world now understand him, and that's why they don't get mad at him anymore, because that's his nature. But I think if you stand up to him, he will work with you, as happened with his trade war against the whole world, unfortunately. When the Europeans, the Chinese stood up to him, now he's changing his mind. So I think it's going to, hopefully, President Trump will listen to his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and I believe he does listen to him because he likes him and he respected him. He did not send Secretary of State Marco Rubio because Marco Rubio is not really as intelligent as Witkoff and doesn't have the experience. Witkoff is a very intelligent man, and he does care about the interests of the United States and the interests of Iran at the same time. And Iran is needed. We have to ease the tension in the Middle East. And Iran, if an agreement is achieved, I am positive there will be peace in the Middle East, especially in Gaza, because I think the Palestinian people cannot afford to starve to death and should not starve to death, because the world community, even here in the United States, are not even listening to the cries of the Palestinian children who are dying because there is no food and no water. And don't forget that Israel has nuclear weapons. Why don't we send inspectors to Israel? We don't. Where Pakistan has it, India has it, all the Europeans, we have it.
You changed from the Gaza issue to the nuclear one. Let me get clear of the Gaza issue. How do you view the Gaza file in such talks?
It's a new Holocaust, unfortunately, and maybe the Israelis or my Jewish friend will get mad at me. What's happening in Gaza is unbelievable. The whole world doesn't care. People are really starving. Israel doesn't allow food or water, and they are bombed every day. There is nothing standing. Yesterday, they bombed the hospital. You don't bomb a hospital. A week ago, they assassinated people who are trying to help other people. They saw the ambulances. They claimed they didn't see the lights. But according to all the investigation, yes, they saw the lights of the ambulances. They bombed them. They killed them. And this is against every law in the world, against humanity. Netanyahu must be stopped. Are we going to stop him? No, unfortunately, we cannot, because, as you know, the Israeli lobby is very powerful in Washington, D.C. The Congress is controlled by the Friends of Israel. Almost all the Republicans in the Congress are more Israelis than Americans. and nobody would dare to say anything to Netanyahu in regard to Gaza. And President Trump wanted to exile all the Palestinians from Gaza because he claims he will make it a Riviera. He said, we don't have to buy it, we'll own it. This is against every international law in the book, against our principles here in the United States. We were the beacon of love, of democracy, of peace. Unfortunately, President Trump changed everything. He's changing the whole world. And if he doesn't achieve a nuclear agreement with Iran, God help us in the future.
And that's another issue. Now, there were warnings of sanctions against Iran. Now, are sanctions still seen as a primary leverage tool? Or is there room now for easing measures in exchange for Iranian cooperation, do you think?
Future meetings, I think, between Witkoff and the Iranian foreign minister, something positive is going to happen. Because sanctions are bad. Who really got hurt from the sanctions? The people, the poor people, the innocent people. And now President Trump is trying to reopen the market in Iran. So he will have to ease the sanction against Iran. Secondly, here, before I forget, President Trump wants to get Iran out of the BRICS, because the BRICS scares him. Russia, China, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Iran, and Egypt, all of them are members of the BRICS. It will create a very powerful organization and a very powerful market to compete with the U.S. in the future.
So you think
another one.
You think here Iran's out of the BRICS is part of the discussions, the ongoing discussions?
I think the Iranians now, the Ayatollah is talking tough, but I think behind the scene, the president of Iran and Ayatollah have been talking, and they want the embargo to be and the sanction to be lifted, because I don't think they could survive for a long time. No. Now, Iran is exporting gas into Iraq, exporting oil to China and other nations. So if the U.S. will stop...
Let me get that clear. I'm sorry. You spoke about the BRICS and the existence of Iran in the BRICS. So do you think part of the talks or the discussions would be that Iran should leave the BRICS? Is this what you're saying here?
That's what President Trump wants, but I don't think Iran will withdraw from the BRICS unless President Trump gives them a guarantee that Iran will not be attacked, the sanction will be lifted. And when American companies go back to Iran as prior to 1979 revolution, I think Iran is going to be our best ally, and they would do whatever we ask them to do. Because in the past, they were a good ally. They love the United States. And in 1979, when the Iranian so-called students kidnapped our American employees from the embassy, it was a game, I think, from the Reagan-Bush campaign then. And that's what cost Jimmy Carter the election. And in October of that year, President Carter sent the Marines to rescue the hostages. Somebody from Reagan-Bush campaign tipped the Iranians, and our Marines were killed by the Iranians, and there was no investigation. They called it the October surprise, that they promised to be investigation, nothing happened. So when Ayatollah Khomeini ordered the students with President Bani Sadr to release the hostages before the presidential election here, nobody listened to him. So who were they working for? The Iranian government or someone else?
Given Trump's history of withdrawing from the 2015 nuclear deal, what assurances would Iran need for a new agreement? And definitely Iran has called for a clear Middle East from all nuclear weapons. What is this, or how does this resonate to the U.S. administration?
If the agreement is signed, hopefully it will be signed, President Trump must send it to the Congress for approval. And it's going to be approved because he controls the U.S. Congress. The majority of the members of the Congress are Republicans, and they are supporting him 100%, and no one would dare to go against him. So I believe now we have a golden opportunity to achieve an agreement with Iran, and to send the agreement to the Congress. It will approved, then it will become legal, and nobody could cancel it in the future. And the Iranians will accept it, and that's one of the demands they have been asking for. As I said before, President Trump doesn't like President Obama, and President Trump likes to sign anything. He likes to change every agreement if he could to put his signature, because he does love his signature and he talks about it. So hopefully we'll give him whatever he wants. Usually I'm against him most of the time, but this time I think I'm very optimistic, and I hope that he will not change his mind, and he will move forward with the negotiation and the meeting with the Iranian government in order to achieve a good nuclear agreement that it benefits both sides, the Iranians and the Americans. We cannot be selfish. We have to work with everyone. As you know, President Trump wants everything for himself. He's a businessman. He wants to make money. But when he thinks about the Iranian market, a new market for our products, for our companies to make billions, maybe and trillions, I think he's going forward. And because he sent Steve Witkoff, I don't think he's going to disappoint Steve Witkoff, or he's not going to fire him as he does with most of his supervisors if they don't agree with him, because he does listen to Steve Witkoff. And that's really good for all of us and for the Iranian people.
What do you think the role played by U.S. allies, particularly Israel, in shaping U.S. expectations from these negotiations, or in shaping the negotiations itself?
I think when Netanyahu was here, he did not know about the talks between the U.S. and the Iranians. He was surprised at the Oval Office when President Trump mentioned it. And Netanyahu was looking at his advisors. He was really surprised. He did not know. For the first time, I think, President Trump is doing it on his own, and he's not going to listen to anyone because, as I said before, because of Steve Witkoff, that's his friend, and he wants to do what's good for the national interest of the United States, not of Israel or anyone else. Secondly, he will be going to Saudi Arabia and to the Gulf area. He wants trillions from them to invest in the United States. He's not going to lose the trillions because of Netanyahu. He gave Netanyahu enough. And Netanyahu is a war criminal. He should have been arrested when he was in Washington, but unfortunately, nobody would dare. So President Trump is going to go ahead with the agreement, and Israel will try to create problems through the Israeli lobby here in Washington, D.C. But as you know, Trump is very strong, and sometimes he doesn't listen to anyone. He's very arrogant, and he thinks he knows everything. So this time, I think he's not going to listen to anyone but Steve Witkoff.
Right. So with Iran insisting that talks are just limited to nuclear issues, will the U.S. settle with that, or does Trump plan to address concerns like the ballistic missiles or the regional activities with its proxies in the region, or could negotiations expand beyond the nuclear program, do you think?
I think it's going to expand because there was a draft agreement between Iran and President Joe Biden. President Joe Biden was waiting for the presidential election. He did not know he was going to be forced out. So he wanted to sign it before the election, believing that it's going to help him winning re-election. Unfortunately, he was forced out by the godfathers of the Democratic Party. But this is an agreement, and there have been secret meetings between the Trump administration and the Iranian government. In September, if you remember, President Trump sent Elon Musk to New York, where he met with Iranian officials at United Nations. So Trump has been trying to achieve a nuclear agreement with the Iranians, and he has been working with them behind the scene. For the first time, he mentioned it this past Monday when the Prime Minister, war criminal Netanyahu, was at the White House. And thank God we had a good meeting yesterday, and both sides are happy. Iran is happy, Witkoff is happy, even President Trump is very happy. So hopefully in next meeting and the following, there'll be more positive meetings, and hopefully we could have a nuclear agreement, if not by the beginning of the summer, maybe by the end of the summer. But the main thing now is to ease the tension in the Middle East. And as you know, Iran is out of Lebanon, almost out of Syria. It still have the Houthi in Yemen, and President Trump has been bombing them, not because he wants war, because he wants to tell the Israelis, look, I'm fighting for you now. I'm attacking the Houthi in Yemen who have been firing missiles into Israel. Secondly, the Houthi really is disrupting the marine time in that area. Egypt lost billions because many ships are not coming through the Suez Canal. So
Right.
everybody wants peace, and the Saudis were smart when they
Yes,
worked with the
indeed,
Houthi.
Mr. Malik. Indeed, Mr. Malik,
Yes.
everyone wants peace. That was Mr. Malik Francis, political analyst and member of the Republican Party. We thank you so much for your insights. And I guess that brings us to the end of today's episode of In Depth. Many thanks for watching, and join us and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.